And we are live. Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, your home of the apocalypse, for episode 55, Entertainment in the Apocalypse. I am Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace. He is Adam Glancy. And special guest host tonight is Michael O. Vorhola from Skirmisher Publishing and D Infinity Live magazine and podcast.
That's right. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
We're going to need some sort of post-apocalyptic name for Mike. He's been on the show so much. What do you think about the Varholinator, maybe?
I don't know. That sounds a little, maybe almost off-color, but maybe that's what I want to go for.
Varholinator? I don't know. How
I
about...
can't keep a straight face when I say it. I can't expect other people to keep a straight face. That's not very post-apocalyptic.
Scavenger Mike, you know...
I can go with that.
Scavenger Mike, yeah, Scavenger Mike.
Michael
the Scavenger.
All right. Back when I was a kid and I was exploring old Nazi tunnels under the base I lived at in Germany, I went by Tunnel Runner. So that might work with a post-apocalyptic thing.
Yeah, isn't that a young adult novel series already? No, wait, that was...
I don't know.
That was
a Maze Runner or something.
It's a Maze Runner. All right, not a Tunnel Runner. So, yeah, you are a diminutive fellow, but of the three of us, Mike, you're the guy who gets to go in the Viet Cong tunnel.
Oh yeah, you're the tunnel rat. That's it. Yeah.
Mike, Jared and I are not going in the tunnel. You're going in the tunnel. Here's your 45 and a hand grenade. Good luck, soldier.
No, it's true. Even a few years ago when I was in Paris and I was exploring the Paris catacombs with a friend of mine, that was our motto: the little guy leads with a knife. So I was crawling along through the Paris catacombs with my boot knife because, if I couldn't get through it, he sure as hell wasn't going to be getting through it. So, nope, that is my fate.
All right, we'll put you to work on the Snowpiercer, cleaning the inside of the engine like those little toddlers. All right, but enough of that.
All right, folks. So tonight we're going to talk about entertainment in the apocalypse, because when the power's out and civilization has collapsed, what are you going to do to keep entertained? Because there's no more Xbox, there's no more Hulu, there's no more Netflix, so you got to entertain yourself.
There's no more us. We're going to be, you won't be able to tune in to Podcast at Ground Zero, so you're
going to be living it. So
yeah.
We had talked about previously music a little bit, along with the Apocalypse Rock folks. We didn't cover too much, though. I figured, okay, you know what? We didn't really ever go over kind of entertainment, so music and other things you need to do to keep yourself busy, because you're going to be, maybe eating. You're lucky if you're going to sleep, but you're going to be busting your ass, whether it's scrounging, farming this or that. But every once in a while, you got to get entertained. You need some kind of distraction. So we're going to talk about that for this show. Just a couple quick things to share. I had showed Scott. I did not know. I just recently discovered, because I'm reading Lucifer's Hammer. I've come back to it. In I believe it was 1993. Innovation Comics started doing a comic adaptation of Lucifer's Hammer. Now, I think there were supposed to be 6 issues of it, and I haven't taken them out of the bag yet, folks. I mean, I just got them in, but you can see that there are 2 comic books here, Lucifer's Hammer's comic book, and that's all there is just 2. So I guess they must have done 2, and either it was one of these little tiny comic book companies that formed like in the 90s, so it either failed or they stopped producing it. So there's only 2 issues, so I'm only going to get a partial apocalypse out of this, but I'll read those and we'll talk about them when, because a future show we're going to do Lucifer's Hammer, so we're going to talk about one of our favorite novels. So we're going to do a show covering that.
And why that one completely needs to be done as a miniseries. I mean, I'm sorry, but
absolutely.
That one, there is nothing about that about Lucifer's Hammer that won't work for the modern age. Right down to updating the orbital platform with the International Space Station, and having to land in a Soyuz craft.
Right.
Because that's the lifeboat. That is still the lifeboat for getting off of the International Space Station.
Oh yeah, because I didn't realize. 'Cause I read the book originally early '80s. I don't know, '83ish or something like that. And I haven't come back to, and I've reread it a couple times in the '80s, and I haven't come back to it in a long time. And I was like, I was reading it, and I'm like, wow, if the shuttle program takes off, I'm like, when the fuck was this written? And it was like 70. It was like came out like it came out, I believe, in '77. So it was written in '76 before the shuttle program was even launched. I'm like, oh my god! At the time, it didn't connect with me, but coming back to it now, all these decades later, I'm like, holy shit! That was like written in the '70s.
Pretty sophisticated.
They were talking about Skylab still, and it's like, oh,
right.
no, Skylab fell out of the fucking sky.
I imagine it was probably written even before that first glider test of the Enterprise, which was never an orbital shuttle. It was just sort of I guess it was a prototype, just to test the airfoil,
the aerodynamics of it. Yeah.
Yeah, just to check the aerodynamics of of landing that thing.
But anyway, now let's stop that. Let's save all that good Lucifer's Hammer conversation.
This is your A material.
Huh? I know. It's like
your A material here.
I know. So yeah, folks, in the very near future, we're going to do a show covering Lucifer's Hammer because, as we did like one of our top 5 books episodes that we've talked about many times, it's just a classic, very solid post-apocalyptic novel. So we're going to talk about that. So there's a comic book series that started to come out for that. Also, for those who play Fallout 4, they're starting to come. They've announced 3 of the add-ons, for the game. So the first one that's coming out next month is Automatron, which is all about robots. It releases more robots into the game because initially they didn't have Scott, what was the one with the brain?
Oh yeah, literally the brain bots.
Yeah, I can't remember what the fuck. I just draw a blank of what they were called. But so it has those robots. You could build companion robots and build them out and customize them. Then there's going to be an expansion which has more stuff for your settlements. You could set traps and capture creatures and pit them against each other in arenas. Apparently, entertainment, folks. And then the third one, they haven't announced the fourth yet, is Far Harbor, which takes you to Maine, and apparently it is the largest add-on expansion for any game they've done. So
it'll be bigger than Point Lookout.
Yeah, apparently it's going to be huge. So if anybody here is listening to this and plays the game and they're curious about getting the expansions, I recommend getting the season pass right now for it, because the season pass right now is $30. The 4 expansions are going to cost $60 if you buy them separately. So you're getting it for half price, but March 1st it's going up to $50 for the season pass. So if you're listening and you hear this before March 1st and you want to get it now, save yourself some money.
Here's my problem. Since I don't have an Xbox, the new Xbox, and I don't have the game, I don't believe I can buy the season pass. So as much as I'd love to spend $30 now rather than $60 later, I'm hosed.
Well, by the time you get it, the whole Game of the Year edition will be out and will have everything in it. So
that's kind of what I'm hoping. Well, that's what I'm hoping for.
So that's that, folks. So that's the Fallout stuff's coming out, and I just wanted to also mention they're starting to have some trailers out for the new Abrams movie, 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh yeah.
So from looking at it again, you don't really know. Is there an apocalypse going on outside? They kind of allude to that, and apparently, the John Goodman character is like some kind of crazy prepper guy because he's got this shelter and he's got these people, kind of prisoner there. So that's kind of apocalyptic, and there's supposed to be something going on outside. Is it real? Is it not? I don't know. So
now, is this a tie-in with Cloverfield, or is it just a coincidence?
Don't know yet. They have not revealed enough information.
I have no doubt that when they escape and get outside, they're going to wish they hadn't. No matter which way you cut it, it's going to be worse outside.
So that seems like something,
For instance, they could escape into a Trump. They could escape, get outside, and emerge into a Trump presidency.
They could. Hey, he's running.
And I've lost half our viewers. Boom, just like that.
Well, hey, he's running. He wants to run for your party, Scott.
I know.
Yeah, why did
What do you mean wants
after
to?
so many years, Scott, if you didn't want them to be president, huh?
Yeah, what do you mean wants to run? He is clearly wiping his cock off on my party as we speak. He's done with it. It's pretty terrifying.
Well, like Scott has said before, the Republican Party that he signed up for back in high school is not the same Republican Party that we have now. So we'll give him that.
Yeah. If I just had any brains, I'd just move on to. Oh, wait, there's nothing else.
There is no. Yeah, it's you're voting for a different color suit, so it doesn't really matter.
I'll just keep praying it's 1965.
We'll have to do an episode on politics in the post-apocalyptic world too. So get that in after. What are you calling the one on Lucifer? You gonna call that Hammer Time? I think that's what we ought to call that episode. That'd be Hammer Time. You got to wear baggy pants and you got to do a dance routine at the beginning.
I think. Speaking of entertainment.
I'm segueing us in entertainment here.
The first thing I want to imagine in the post-apocalyptic entertainment world, that first generation, there's going to be any number of people who were, actual famous, internet famous. If you survive the apocalypse, it's probably worth 3 hots and a cot. If you were, I don't know, obviously you can't be David Bowie anymore, but let's say, there's a horror story. Kanye survives the apocalypse, which is great for him because he's suddenly not $53 million in debt anymore, right?
He's the first one gone. No matter, I will find him and I will make beef jerky out of him.
It's so funny. I mean, when you said post-apocalyptic entertainment, I thought Kanye West. I just saw him on Saturday Night Live the other night, and I thought it was a joke at first. I mean, he and his crew were up there, and they just sort of shambled around in circles a little bit. And I'm thinking, is this like grabbing 5 or 6 bums and giving them $10 each and saying, "Put on a talent show, guys"? I mean, it was just stunning.
Let's go ahead.
Is this real? Is this a joke?
Let's point out that when we do have our post-apocalyptic entertainment, the crowds are going to be rougher than the crowds at the Apollo. There's certain venues that have a reputation for not letting you waste their time and money. You know what I mean? Where you show up, you better have a fucking show, or it won't be tomatoes they're throwing. If people are bored.
No, they're going to need to change it, from a night at the Apollo to a night in the apocalypse,
Yeah, so there you go.
They're going to have to change all that. So, all right, folks. So that was all the real, just kind of a little apocalyptic stuff I come across. So we're apparently moving on to entertainment. So, yeah. So what do we think about when we think about entertainment and apocalypse besides, Thunderdome or Escape from New York when Snake Plissken finds Cabby in the theater watching, the drag show. So,
was he in Radio City Music Hall? Was that where he was supposed to be? I
believe that's where he's supposed to be.
Well, you know what? I would say 2 things in response to that. One, that I think the whole idea of the drag show, which is kind of absurd and crazy, I think that's a lot more believable and a lot more likely. It's going to be a lot more prevalent than the omnipresent pit fight that you always see. I mean, why is it always got to be a pit fight? I think that the case on that is really overstated. And then we don't want to forget that in the post-apocalyptic world, we're dealing with maybe 10% of the pre-apocalyptic population, maybe 1%. You can have a lot more small group and individual entertainment rather than these huge stadium events that you always see, because people are just going to be operating in smaller groups. You're not going to get 50,000 people together to watch a massive gladiatorial fight on a.
We're not filling the Budokan. We're not going to fill the Budokan.
This is what I'm saying. So that would be my take on those 2 examples that you gave.
Oh no, and Mike, you're 100% right that just whatever, because depending on the population split, what's around, is people just kind of going on stage, if anything, entertainment, may go back to, maybe a little medieval, a little Punch and Judy type kind of thing.
I think so.
or maybe even Wild West saloon type, maybe a
Exactly,
little,
sure.
can girls kind of stuff.
Right.
I think of what stood out, in our fiction. We got Kevin Costner doing, trying to read Shakespeare from town to town in The Postman.
Yep.
And we've got Christian Bale and I'm forgetting the name of the actor who was in 300. But they're doing Star Wars for the kids in Reign of Fire. You remember that part where they're like, one of them's wearing a black cape and a welder's mask, and they're like, no, but I am your father. And all the kids who've grown up after the apocalypse are like super surprised. They're like, oh, really? He's his father?
Oh my God, I forgot. Who you just taught? Totally forgotten about that. Wow.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm like, yeah, that's right, kids. He's his father. And the kids are like, no. Yes, I can certainly see that far more. That's so much more likely than Mike's pit fight. That's I
Well, not my pit fight.
Well, all right, it's not your.
I don't think the pit fights are going to be. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the pit fights are going to be that prevalent. I think they're going to be more the exception to the rule. That's the omnipresent thing in post-apocalyptic movies, and I really that's indicative of a brutalized, organized, fascistic society, and so you're going to have some of that. But is that going to be the main thing to have?
And we may have that out of the gate. Because it's going to be
exactly.
It's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal first. People are going to be fighting for stuff, but maybe as things start to settle down, and also thank you, Daniel Puckett, one of our viewers, Robo Brains. Thank you.
Daniel, Johnny on the spot with a Robo Brain. Thank you.
Thank you. We all drawn a blank, and I told you. My brain is like a sieve now, so some things stay, some things don't. But yes, there's always going to be, like you mentioned, Shakespeare. There'll still be books around. People will either read to themselves for entertainment, unless you break your glasses. There was time at last. So you might, you might have a little bit of that.
On the plus side. Since he's Burgess Meredith, I like to note that even though he broke his glasses, he did get to sleep with Lieutenant Uhura, so it wasn't all bad being Burgess Meredith. Okay? Worse things could have happened to a fella in the 1960s. Just, there you go.
Yeah, so besides people entertaining themselves, you're going to have these things, like we said, maybe, the pit fight or the play, and like Scott said, with Reign of Fire, like people bringing things back that they remember from television, like, reenacting scenes from Three's Company or whatever the case.
That would be a nightmare. It's like, oh wait, is this the episode where there's a misunderstanding? Why, yes it is. How did you guess?
So,
the idea that they're performing Friends episodes rather than Hamlet is really depressing.
Well, but you know what? That's probably going to happen because people in general are probably not going to remember Macbeth or Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet, but they're going to remember their favorite Seinfeld. It's like
Star Wars.
I mentioned the bisque. You're going to have that kind of stuff.
The idea of them doing Star Wars is the super easy one because it's one of those giant things that's drawn in such big strokes that you don't have to remember all that intricate language of Shakespeare or the intricate jokes. I wonder if Python will survive. I wonder if people will be doing the parrot sketch post-apocalypse.
That would be great.
But yeah, I think we think medieval. We think live performances, puppet shows, songs, minstrels, just having access to a musical instrument that's not fucked up, and then combining it with a musician that has all his fucking fingers, that's going to be a big achievement, right?
I think one thing that you're going to see, a phenomena, is that it's going to be incumbent upon more individuals to be entertaining. So, if you go back 140 years, to the era of the Civil War, the era before the phonograph, more people knew how to play instruments. more people knew how to do things that were entertaining. And today, a lot of people don't have that. I mean, there are those of us who are more or less professional storytellers, those of us who write books or publish or whatever. But most people get entertained. They're looking for a stream of entertainment. They don't actually most people don't do anything that's particularly entertaining. And I would say that the volume of people who learn to do entertaining things is really going to go. You know, one of the main forms of entertainment, aside from the big spectacles, it's going to be storytelling. Just like in the Middle Ages, just like the medieval period, you said, Scott, when someone travels in from another place, people are going to want to hear the stories of what was on the other side of the mountains.
Well, it's half news and half entertainment.
Storytelling, even for just your normal traveler or adventurer, is going to become a much bigger deal.
Well, it might be worth a hot meal. You might be able to
a hot meal and a safe bed. Exactly.
Yeah, for one night. And again, the idea that, when it comes to entertainment as a talent, if the world is safe enough for people to move in, then there's going to be this pressure on entertainers to move because people are going to get tired of their shtick. If you only know 6 songs or 2 chords, 3 chords if you're one of those fruity jazz bands. But let's say you know a whole 3 chords. Maybe you get to stay a week, before you have to move on to the next place. So the idea that that there's a professional class of people who are entertaining, who are stay on the move in an area so they can keep changing up their material, getting new material, whatever. I get that. I mean, do we also? I mean. One other thing I want to throw out is you said distractions, right? And Mike, you're absolutely right about the music, because, I think before the phonograph, there's a piano in every house, because if you don't have a musical instrument in the house, there's no fucking music. That's it.
Right.
You've got humming,
Oh, yeah.
Unless the idea of staging Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, how many fucking assholes are there, plus the chorus? I mean... it's kind of huge. But then you'd get more into more of the Baroque era stuff, like the concerto, the smaller
string quartets.
String quartet. Well, what if strings survive? But those kind of the harpsichord piano like that. Like Bach was big. He did a lot of the small stuff. Like small string quartets.
You're right. Something that doesn't require an opera house, but requires merely a music room in a relatively rich person's house.
There is a precedent for that in America. The sort of bluegrass quartet. You've got a musical tradition, and once again, just go back 140 years. Go back to before any sort of phonographs or electronics at all, and you can really just see. I think what things would very likely go back to pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be enough people surviving who have it. Because, you figure how many people out there have some kind of, they took a guitar, they took violin. I don't remember. I took violin in 4th and 5th grade. I couldn't do a fucking thing on it, but so many people took some level. So there's a lot of people who could sing. Everybody thinks they could sing now because everybody thinks they're American Idol, but there are actually just regular everyday people who don't have careers in the music industry, but they could actually sing. And there's so many people with garage bands who they could play the guitar, they could beat on the drums. So there's enough people out there who could tap into that, who have at least a rudimentary knowledge, and if they just keep on doing it, they're just going to get better and better. So there is a pool out there, and like Mike again had said, it's going to become more prevalent, because besides looking for bullets and ammo, eventually they're going to be looking for, hey, look, we found some guitar strings for that guitar, because they broke, or things like that.
It's going to be a while before we manufacture some new guitar strings.
Yeah.
But amongst your other distractions, I want to point out booze, of course.
Oh, well, yeah.
North America, we're going to be awash in pot as entertainment, because it grows everywhere in North America.
Is it all right? Well, okay. Well, booze and
are
pot
intoxicants entertainment for these purposes? I guess we can classify them as such. Sure.
We could. People are going to have a party, have a drink, but in general, people are going to drink themselves into a stupor because they don't want to deal with reality and find the drugs and the medications and the pot. I think it's less of entertainment, more of an escape because they
Right,
can't
right,
deal with
right.
reality.
Well, it's sort of a prophylaxis kind of thing too. Going back to Scott's example of the Middle Ages, during the Middle Ages in Europe, the average person, children included, drank a gallon of weak beer a day. So this is like 3-2 beer. But people drank about a gallon of beer a day, and they drank it continuously, and they did that for two reasons. One, there were no painkillers. So, you know, if you worked in fields or you worked in manual labor, you couldn't take an aspirin. So people were constantly drinking, you know, this weak beer just to keep their bodies anesthetized a little bit, and they didn't have to worry about water purity problems. So I think Scott's absolutely right. People are probably going to be sort of staying inebriated just to take the edge off of shitty reality. Look at all the people who stay inebriated in our pre-apocalyptic reality.
Oh yeah. Well, look how many people.
That much more important after it.
Well, look how many people now are freaking, you know, stoned all the time or drunk all the, you know. It's like I've known so many people in my life where they fucking smoked pot nonstop all day.
We all know that guy, right?
Huh?
We all know that wake and bake guy. We do.
Well, you know, Scott knows what I'm talking about. You know, the rinky-dink potheads who, you know, I used to hang out with. They were great guys. Don't get me wrong, but they were constantly smoking weed.
Can I just point out that I've always loved the term rinky-dink. I really wish I knew what the origin of that was. Anyways, the other things I would throw out is you said prophylaxis, so let's go straight to prostitution. Does that count as entertainment in the post-apocalypse?
Yeah, sure, on some level.
Well, maybe that will go along with, because, you know, you're going to have, well, if we're going to go that far, you know, if we're going to roll sex into it, it could be more than just prostitution. That's going to be entertainment. You know, there could be a reemergence of the sex shows or burlesque, maybe, because again, the individual actors, people,
kind of thing.
Yeah, you know, and hopefully there won't be a rise of, you know, the good old south of the border, you know, donkey shows and things like that. But again, depending on where you're at.
Depends if America's conquered by a race of mutant donkeys.
They could be mutant donkeys.
I'm just saying, cybernetic mutant donkeys.
Or, you know, because it could be, well, you know, like in what was it, South Africa, District 9.
I was going to say Hell Comes to Frogtown, but all right.
Well, Hell Comes to Frogtown, District 9, you know, prostitution was there, but again, was that it? Well, you know, it was probably more that prostitution was probably more entertaining for the people who were, you know, selling the women for prostitution to the aliens to be able to watch and experience. That was probably more entertaining for the people who were selling the people.
You're going for cafe flesh then.
That's probably more of what it's going to be than just
the crappy old porno from the early '80s. There's a crappy old porno from the early '80s called Cafe Flesh, where their post-apocalyptic dystopia was, since the population is impotent or frigid because of radiation, that's their fucking entry point for a bunch of, you know, sex going on screen. is that there's like one channel that broadcasts the last people with sex drives on the planet to entertain the jaded, zombie-like, radiated population of post-apocalyptic North America. Yeah, that's how deep porn was in the 80s, kids. It's not like today, where all you've got are 5-second animated GIFs. Porn. That's all you get now.
Well, that
loop. It's like the loop taken to its logical extreme, Scott. Right?
Exactly. And what you were talking about, Scott, made me think of the zombie doped up masses. Made me think of THX 1138, where the workers just come back to the house, they take their pills, and they turn on the TV, and it's just like somebody beating somebody with a whip or a
that's right. Yeah. You turn on the TV. One channel was a guy being beaten to death, and the other channel was a naked woman dancing. That was it. There's
a lot of that in Brave New World too. Keep in mind, if you want to go back to some literary roots there.
Please.
Keep in mind, Aldous Huxley. He had a lot of personal experience with drugs. Remember, he also wrote Gateways of Perception, so he was doing a lot of LSD around the time that he wrote Brave New World. And his populace was kept in check by being regularly medicated with psychotropic drugs and by being exposed to these weird cathartic kind of spectacles that you're talking about. So really, any of the movies that present that to some extent are really drawing on Brave New World to some extent, I think.
Yeah. It was Soma. Was that the name of the drug? Soma?
It was Soma, exactly, which is an ancient Hindu term for a drink made with a cannabis base.
You mean like manna?
No, Soma was a term for a drink made with like cannabis.
Okay.
So it was like a narcotic type drink.
Okay. Other entertainments, Mr. Wallace.
Well, and also speaking of, again, back to the
Drugs
Postman.
or prostitution?
Well, yeah. Well, speaking back of the horrible Postman, like you saw when they had like their, they had like at night they had gatherings. They had like a dance and they had people playing music. So you would have like these mini festivals, like people getting together at night, just dancing and having a good time. Because again, you had a couple of the people,
Yep.
they found some drums and some acoustic guitars, and they were playing like classic songs from the 80s that they remembered, or they remembered as much as they did about the songs, playing those songs. So you might have things like that at like gatherings at night, just people just dance.
I think you would. I think that would be the actual real norm, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not the least of which, because if we're talking post-apocalypse, the sun goes away, getting work done is not really going to happen.
Yeah.
You're done working. If you're still awake, maybe you manage to burn some calories and burn some of your, whatever extra you've ended up with at the end of the work week, on a dance or some noise. And I will point out that other things I wanted to throw out and possible sources of entertainment, religion. Boy, they like to sing and they like some music and any number of religious
That's right.
activities. Religion, I think, would be a big source of entertainment. It's a show, it's a show with some talk and some songs, and everyone gets to sing, and if it's some Pentecostal stuff, it could get all shaker and quaker. And what's more entertaining than being ridden by the Loa? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean ridden by the Loa. I mean touched by the Spirit of God. You're not being ridden by the Loa.
Oh yeah, but you're right, because you look at those churches and they are singing, they're dancing, they're clapping, they're having a great time. And you know what? You could do you don't need Netflix or any of that. They just do it all just by candlelight or whatever light they have. Again, depending, we go back to power source in the apocalypse. If they have any power, if they have their candles, if they have their they're hooked up to the solar, whatever. But you're right. As dusk falls, especially with power, they're going to conserve it as much as possible if they have it. So there's not going to be a whole lot going on. Maybe like just light some bonfires, people dancing around, music, singing, praising, whatever the case may be. So I think Mike's right. A lot of that's probably going to be more the norm than Thunderdome.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will get that again, especially at the
I don't
gate.
dispute that.
Here's where I'm going to suggest Thunderdome's going to come up. Thunderdome's going to come up not as a direct form of entertainment, but it is going to show up in that that sort of side line of entertainment, law enforcement and justice. That when the public hanging was what everybody went to in the Wild West town, because again,
That's right.
there's nothing on CNBC, the internet's down, so you go to watch some guy do the dance at the end of the the hemp drop. I think that one of the problems is that people have a tendency to get nasty when they're allowed to be imaginative about hurting other folks. It doesn't take a lot of brains to get imaginative about being mean. I can imagine any number of terrible punishments designed to deter repeat offenders that would be public. The public floggings, pillory, the whole.
And honestly, as much as punishments, I could see spectacles like that being used by local strongmen, local warlords to consolidate power. I mean, keep in mind, one of the biggest forms of entertainment during the French Revolution, during the terror that followed the French Revolution, were these huge spectacles in Place de Révolution where thousands of people would come out to see people have their heads cut off by guillotine. Those were entertainment spectacles of exactly the sort that you're describing.
Yeah.
But, Scott, they weren't pure entertainment. They were also meant to consolidate power for the government.
Yes, they're
They
supposed
were
to
also
show you
meant to direct people's anger and their emotions and to control them. So I can see as much as anything, not just justice being dispensed, but terror and punishment being used for purposes of consolidating power or marginalizing certain peoples, pleasing others, whatever.
But not just the punishment aspect, which is sort of the very obvious,
the spectacle aspect.
Spectacle aspect. But I also think the actual trials.
Yes.
The actual trial
Sure.
where this community gets together and they watch what's happening. I keep thinking of the trial, and I don't know why I've been thinking, because we just lost Harper Lee. I've been thinking about that trial where Atticus Finch defends the guy in To Kill a Mockingbird, or the Scopes trial.
Salem witch trials, anything like that.
Oh, that's a good one, Mr. Wallace.
Yep.
The Salem witch trials is a really good one, because it is way too much about entertainment.
And even moving closer to modern times in Nazi Germany, so from the period like 1933 right up to the end of the war, the Nazis ran what they called people's courts. And they would have a tribunal that would have, Nazi party judges who would have some person brought before them, and they would berate them and insult them. And this was done so that a big crowd could watch this and get really, really whipped up watching the power of the state being used to grind down one person who would then be punished in some way. So the Nazi people's courts are, probably close to a lot of what we're talking about too.
It reminds me of some of what you're talking about, the spectacle showing the state's power and showing the state's ruthlessness and getting the crowd whipped up to hate the target. That's very much your 2 minutes of hate you get. It's your Orwellian 2 minutes of hate. It's
right.
It's your
right,
death
right. Exactly so. Exactly so.
It's your death to America chant in Iran.
Yes. Right. It's really, this is the same phenomena again and again and again. It's just a matter. The details change, but really on a macroscopic level, they're identical from time to time and place to place.
But we haven't mentioned one thing. We haven't mentioned is sports yet.
No, you're right.
And the moment I think of sports, the other thing I want to get into is gambling.
Yes.
Okay.
That I imagine, that, and what I loved about Thunderdome is that there was an aspect of gambling to the law system, because they, break a deal, spin the wheel, and suddenly it's, like, the price is right, except, the punishment is wrong, or whatever the
Gambling could be an aspect of any of these things that we've already talked about too, couldn't it?
Gambling, yes, absolutely.
But also gambling, even just a basic playing cards.
Playing craps.
Because craps, people, you could easily carve dice out of wood. They might not be perfect. You could carve it. Playing cards, you can make your own.
That means RPGs will live forever as long as we can carve our polyhedrons out of so much wood. Oh, that's going to be great.
Because especially playing poker, playing blackjack, whatever the case may be, there are so many decks of cards out there. I probably have at least 2 within arm's length of me right here in the office, just within easy reach.
Right, exactly.
And decks are easy to make. I mean, I can see somebody carving, hand drawing decks, which they did, to create their own decks afterwards.
Exactly. So, the RPGs. You know what? I guess because now that apparently and I'm not going to get on the soapbox, but apparently with the resurgence of how geek culture is now popular culture, which people are deluded in thinking that's the common thing now. But anyway, it's just more polarized, probably within our sect.
They went down in the trenches with us, Jared.
No, but they're making it out to be like, geek culture is popular culture, regular culture. Dude, you pick any 10 random people on the street, and they're not not even a third. Maybe a third of them might be nerds or geeks. But anyway, But if you get people who survive who are into the gaming, or you get like some kind of enclave of nerds together, our role-playing games might actually be a source of entertainment because again, it's a form of escapism, imagination. You're putting yourself in a different place. When you're grinding yourself, tilling the fields and stuff all day. Well, you might be too tired to do anything, but you want to escape, and maybe you don't have all the drugs and alcohol and weed you were talking about. People might do some kind of role playing.
Our RPGs are just interactive storytelling with a randomized mechanic. So
precisely so.
It's dirt cheap. Oh my God, is it dirt cheap?
Or it might just be more of like a Once Upon a Time kind of thing where it's just really kind of story based telling. If like, whoa, you go to the
mall.
You go to the mall. Tell us what happened at the mall. Kind of creating their own scenario.
The fantasy world is showing up to your job, working 9 to 5, and then getting a Starbucks latte. That's the fantasy world that everyone goes to in their role-playing game.
A skirmisher publishing in the future will be publishing the pre-apocalyptic role-playing game.
That's right. Yeah, get into your hybrid car and drive to the mall and shop. Have an Orange Julius.
100 T-shirts. Oh my God! Is it possible? Did anyone ever really own 100 T-shirts?
Oh, that's an ugly future, sir. That's an ugly.
So what do we call the game? What is it like? Bosses and I don't know.
Okay, it'll be something like
accountants and
Yeah, well, I was gonna try to come up with something like paychecks and pay stubs or something. I don't know. It'd be something like that. I don't know. Cubicles.
Malls and soccer moms.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, the DM's like, well, you forgot to button the top button of your tie. Your boss fires you. Oh, whatever.
I hate that DM. He's
make a charisma check. Go ahead and make a charisma check.
Yeah, that's the boss that you don't say.
All right. Well, he starts hitting you with a 3-hole punch. A 3-hole punch. What is that? Oh, it's a new exotic weapon I statted up. Let me tell you all about it.
It's 1d4 plus hole damage.
So I want to throw out.
He's going to summon an HR specialist. Ooh.
Oh! Well, that must be a necromancer or something.
Oh.
Mike, that's your next golden idea. You need to come up with the post-apocalyptic pre-apocalyptic role-playing game.
Yeah. I am completely in favor of
As
this.
seen from the future.
I say Kickstarter awaits, sir. Kickstarter awaits.
I've looked into the future, and I've seen the game people will be playing 50 years from now after society has collapsed.
Yeah.
That's gold. That's a license to print money as far as I'm concerned. I will support it fully.
I want to know what the people in the post-apocalypse are going to do when they in this game when they one of the encounters is to have an argument online with an anti-vaxxer. Where they're like, first of all, you're having an argument with a box. And
no, they were a weird type of cult. They lived back then. They didn't want to protect themselves against diseases.
They wanted to have polio.
That's crazy. There was never any such thing.
They're never going to believe there was somebody who
You gotta make this shit at least believable, all right?
Well,
yeah,
you get into the line at the grocery store, but you see the next line is moving faster. Do you stay in your line or move? I'm gonna move into the other line. Now the other line is moving. Oh, come on, that's bullshit!
Right.
How is this possible?
See the tabloids. Make a saving throw to resist reading the headlines on them. Oh, damn it, I failed!
Oh, that's like a negative 10.
Pregnant. Ooh.
Oh, roll to resist click.
You lose a point of wisdom. Oh, man.
I'm sorry, you read about the Kardashians. You lose a point of wisdom.
Permanent intelligent point.
Hold on. I want to go back to. I want to. All right, gambling is something that's going to happen to everybody.
Yes, gambling.
Because it's easy. It's cheap dice. Gambling's going to happen all the time. But I wanted to point out, its relation to sports. Obviously, horse racing, foot racing, any kind of contest. The caber toss, right, where you fucking throw a tree. You know, that's the Scottish national pastime.
Shot puts, anything easy like that. You know, maybe even rugby. You know, might be able to come back because that's an easy. Here, you just have some object to pass around. You know?
Stickball. You know, we'll be playing that football without pads. Okay, but since no one lives past 40, nobody will care. But yeah, all the old sports will still be remembered. You know, they'll still be trying to kick a soccer ball around post-apocalyptic Africa or South America or Europe. You know, all they need to know is how many paces is the field long and wide, and can you draw the lines on the ground, the offsides with a stick in the dirt, and if you got a ball, you're in good shape. Hopefully it won't turn into that Mayan ball game. It won't retrograde in South America where they're killing the team that loses or whatever. But
they would kill the team that won. Right, even worse.
But then I think of, what was that movie with Rutger Hauer, Blood of Heroes? Wasn't that a post-apocalyptic sports extravaganza?
Yeah. Who else was in that? Was it Joan Chen?
Yes.
Yep.
It's Joan Chen and Rutger Hauer, the two I remember.
Came out in like 1989 or
Which
thereabouts.
film?
Blood of Heroes.
Okay.
Blood of Heroes was a post-apocalyptic sport that involved sticking a dog skull on a post at the other team's.
But it was like rugby. It was like rugby with 5 people on each team, I think. Yeah. And it was really brutal. Like losing a player and having to replace them was like a plot point that came up.
Yeah, because somebody's gotten an injury and that's it. They're done.
That's right.
You know.
I think their manager isn't their manager a guy who has like some elaborate leg brace on, but he can't play anymore.
Yeah, there's something like that going on as well. But sports is going to be sports is the kind of thing that first of all, it's real easy. It's something it's particularly important entertainment for children.
Oh yes.
Not only does it create physical fitness and some eye-hand coordination, all things you're going to need to stay away from the fleshy-headed mutants in the post-apocalyptic landscape. But team, you work together as a team. That's going to be important when the raiders show up and you need to take orders and fend off, the fleshy-headed mutants. No, sports is sports be a big deal. The problem being with it, injuries, of course, but that gets us into our medical thing. You get a spiral fracture playing rugby, and you're done. You are now the gimpy guy who tills his fields very slowly.
And Mike, what was the movie and the game? We've talked about this one before.
Quintet.
Thank you.
Oh, Quintet. Yes.
Yeah. And that was interesting. I mean, that was kind of a fun game. As a matter of fact, for anyone who's interested, I've got the rules for Quintet posted to my online game magazine. So I tracked them down. This movie's from when? Like 1980? It was a Paul Newman post-apocalyptic sci-fi movie set in this city that's encased in ice and dying. And people entertain themselves by playing this game called Quintet, where you have 5 markers. It's kind of a complicated game. It's like a board game. But then they took it up to the next level, and if you lost the game, somebody would then try to assassinate you.
Well, I thought it was like they took the game and played it with people instead of markers.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an actual pawn and an actual king and an actual knight.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I've got the rules for that at D-Infinity Online, d-infinity.net.
Jesus, yeah, and you know what? You're right. Games. I just said chess, and I think checkers.
Exactly. Chess, checkers, backgammon, any of those.
Yeah. All those.
Checkers being the easiest because you don't even need to distinguish the different shapes of the items, of the pieces, really.
There's stories
something like a Pachisi type game too, which isn't really an American game. It's more of like a South Asian game. But keep in mind, people will end up coming up with their own games too.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, I also think checkers is easy because you can just use all that currency that's totally useless now because they're nice and circular,
Well, you can use Domars as checkers, can't you?
Domars are stupid, but and
Yes,
here,
you could. In fact, like, that's what I want to see in a fucking Gam World setting. Is you come up and there's the old men at the village store out front on the front veranda playing checkers using a bunch of 1,000 Domar pieces. Because in the future we have coins.
plastic coins.
Plastic coins.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. But anyway,
let me just point this out. I watched.
Sorry, I shouldn't have brought up Domar.
I watched the 1950s Day the Earth Stood Still, and there's a part where Mr. Carpenter, the alien, tells the kid, "Well, I don't have any money. Will these do?" And he reaches into his pocket.
Diamond.
He's got diamonds, and my first thought is, those are worth. First of all, oh great, you guys still have fucking hard currency. But number two, how are those worth anything? They're fucking diamonds. Is De Beers hoarding diamonds off planet 2? Do they have a fucking diamond monopoly to create an artificial scarcity of fucking diamonds?
well,
It's
maybe.
carbon. It's carbon. It's the most
Bring up
common.
a good point, which is cultural bias. And I don't know that that's part of this discussion, but that's what it is. It's cultural bias. And it's hard to get past one's own fundamental assumptions. We understand diamonds are valuable because we say diamonds are valuable. But you're exactly right. Unless you were trading to someone who needed to cut glass or etch tungsten or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, maybe they observed the planet because they did come to warn us and saw that we value these precious shiny things, so they
Yeah.
Good.
made
I mean,
them
that's
to
a good
try
point
to.
in the context of that movie.
Well, sadly, now if that was the case, that would have been great. But sadly, he actually goes, "Oh, this is what we use," and I'm like, it wasn't like, "I hear you, primitive fuckheads like shiny shit." I mean, that would have been fine if he'd just been.
Are they so sensitive that they can tell carat weight just by holding the damn thing?
No. Sadly, no. He like trades
Can
the
you tell
kid.
clarity? Here,
Well,
Jimmy, check the clarity on this for me.
Yeah, apparently Jimmy the kid like immediately Manhattans him and says, "Sure, I'll give you $5. It's got a
Mrs.
president."
Jones over at the boarding house loves that kind of clarity in her diamonds.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, where were we? How did we go to the diamonds? All right, we got on to Domars and checkers.
I got another thing of entertainment which we didn't talk about. We talked about the traveling, storytellers, possibly musicians, actors. What about a traveling? What about a small scale sideshow or circus?
Oh yeah. You take your fleshy-headed mutant, you put it in a cage, and people throw rocks at it.
Or not even just that, like more of the modern freak shows, which are more just people who eat fire, swallow swords, do contortions, and they travel around these little sideshows, like these little mini circuses. Because there's going to be people who might have these talents and they could travel around, and get people to pay for them to see that stuff.
I totally buy that. I totally buy the idea that there would be sideshows and carnivals and circuses and gypsies and all that kind of portable entertainment. Again, because otherwise, if they stick around long enough, their shtick gets old.
Well, not even their shtick, their cons people catch on to their cons and stuff like that. Yeah, because you're not gonna have like Barnum and Bailey, because that's gonna take a lot of resources. But you might have maybe some small cages, and they might have some animals or
Oh yeah. That works.
One of the things that I wrote up for my fantasy campaign setting that I published a campaign called the Swords of Coast Fantasy Campaign Setting, and one of the things I wrote up is a sideshow. It's a traveling sideshow, and it travels around from village to village and city to city, and the show that they put on, the spectacle that they put on, is about the pre-apocalyptic world. I mean, that's actually what I've got written up in my campaign setting. There was an apocalypse 100 years before, and their show is about the wonder. It's called Wonders of Thera, and it's all about the wonderful things that existed 100 years before. So they'll have like shadow puppets that show flying ships, and they'll show skylines of the cities that used to exist. So I can really see that too. Someone playing up the whole idea of the wonders of the past, the pre-cataclysmic world. Look at these images. Even if they had rudimentary way to project an image, they could really impress people in little 100-person villages that they were traveling around to.
Are they going to be like in Beyond Thunderdome, where they have like the front of the TV on the stick and they're pretending to talk?
That was one of my favorite bits. Is the framing device for the cave paintings is a goddamn TV that they hold up to each picture.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think of when Mike tells me that. They're showing about the sky planes.
Right? Yeah. No, but I mean I think that's the kind. People love nostalgia today, and we don't have anything in the last century or 2 centuries as dramatic as an apocalypse. So I can see that being like a thing. And if it happened within the lives of even some people who were still alive, you could see them saying, to their kids or grandkids, yeah, that's really what it was like. Oh, yeah, I remember. I've been telling you that. You never believed me. But listen, they're telling you now, too. That's what it was really like back then.
I want to point out that when you said rudimentary ways of projecting, I've got a book over here called, it was a travel log written in the 20s called Hot Countries. And it was just this guy going around visiting various places. And he's got this one story about going to Tahiti. And this idea that he's going to go to Tahiti, and Tahiti's going to be this idyllic, bucolic, pastoral, half-naked women blowing in conch shells on the beach with swimming and, lazy luau's. And he gets there, and of course that's what all the Europeans want, but the islanders want to, drive around. They want to ride around in cars and go to the movie theater.
Right.
And there's a movie theater, and he's sort of horrified that he gets to Tahiti, and there's a frickin' movie theater in Tahiti. And what the thing that sort of stood out in the movie theater was this story was there's a guy with a megaphone just up at the front who's reading off the English or French or whatever subtitles, translating them, and there's a full live band playing. It's a silent movie, right? So there's a full band, and a guy reading off the subtitles. But the American goes and he sits down and he looks at this stuff, and he quickly realizes that the reels that they're showing on the screen are not only not in order, but from different movies.
They just randomly showing them.
Yeah, and that the locals don't give a shit because it's a fucking movie. I mean, it's
Right.
it's so technologically ahead of them. They're like, whatever. Okay. So suddenly, Buster Keaton turned into a fat guy and a little guy, and now they're standing.
Right.
Oliver Hardy. Who cares? We don't care.
Well, yeah, because you're right. Because people may be cobbling together what's left. Because we'll look at go back to A Boy and His Dog, where they have they have a generator and people pay in food to sit, and watch a movie. If they found a movie reel, so you might have stuff like that.
What I like about this is that if they get the movies like all mashed up, with like you start with one reel and you end with the other, you could actually have films like, and this is one of my favorites because it has the same actor. All That Jaws, where it starts off where he's trying, Roy Scheider's trying to plan a Broadway musical, and then suddenly a shark attacks. And then he's on a boat fighting off this shark that's trying to eat the musical, I guess. So that one works for me very well. But you could end up with these mashups like My Left Footloose.
Right.
Or Gandhi in 60 Seconds, because they're just slapping various reels together.
But it would be hilarious if they slap reels together that are, like you said, the same actors, like just these from different movies. Like you get people who are like in every movie, and you get like a Kevin Bacon or something, who's just in all these movies, But then again, we're thinking the apocalypse, and we're thinking that all these movie reels are going to be around, whereas everything's now digital download, DVDs, things like that.
So instead of Stir of
there's less film than there used to be.
So instead of Stir of Echoes, it'll be Stir of Footloose Tremors.
Right.
Just for all your Kevin Bacon needs.
Stir of Footloose Tremors.
He's dancing to save the small town, and then monsters attack right in the middle of a ghost story. It's gonna be fabulous. Well, or if you wanna like make movies and entertainment, and our pop culture something that people find archaeologically in a Gamma World like setting, where you go back and they're trying to decipher our culture based on Three's Company.
Right.
or the Love Boat, that's kind of hilarious in and of itself. We could probably riff on that for a while, but
what's interesting, a lot of what we're talking about is definitely a lot of this stuff is is going to fall into the realm of after the collapse, like we said, it's kind of settled down. Like we've had the apocalypse, we've had the transition period, and things haven't necessarily built up to these a new society, but things have settled, things have kind of stabilized. Where a lot of those kind of things, like the traveling minstrels, the sideshow, things like we've established a court in the a lot of that's going to be where there has to be some kind of stability and organization left.
Yeah.
It can't be it can't be
That's
right after it happens.
Well, yeah,
that's exactly right.
You can get that in Jeremiah, or you can get that in The Postman. You can't get that in the Cormac McCarthy one. What's it called with Viggo Mortensen?
The Road.
Yeah, you can't get that in The Road. There's no entertainment. There's just cannibalism and rape. I think that's
right.
Not necessarily in that order, but
Now it's funny. Just going back a step to the idea of all that Jaws, sort of a bunch of random stuff just jammed together. Okay, believe it or not, funny you should mention this, and I just remembered it and I looked it up to make sure that I had it right. There is, in fact, a post-apocalyptic movie that's like footage from 8 different movies that's just been cobbled together. And I watched this years ago, and I was so damn confused because I could not figure out what was going on. And then I finally realized it was just random shit just stitched together. It's a real movie. People can check it out. It's Star Quest 2. If you check out Star Quest 2, you will see that it is footage from maybe 8 different films. Many of them filmed at different times. Part of it is people driving around in a post-apocalyptic wasteland in 1970s era cars. Part of it is people up on a space station. A lot of gratuitous sex, a lot of gratuitous violence, but just completely random shit from beginning to end. So Star Quest 2, it is actually the real world example of what you are describing, Scott.
Now was that the 1996 with Adam Baldwin, Robert?
That is the Adam Baldwin one. Yes.
Wow.
Exactly so. And note to the ladies, he looks pretty good in that one. Assuming any ladies actually watch this fucking show.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're lagging in some demographics.
Yeah, it's
it's a sausage fest here on podcast.
I love Sausage Fest. Is this Vienna Sausage Fest?
Hey, speak for yourself. We're talking.
I think he's doing a Metalocalypse there.
Thank you, Jared.
He's
Totally missed the Metalocalypse. That's
he was doing a Metal. I picked up on that one, but
right.
It's definitely like I always said in the past, and it's not as true as it was in the past, but generally, like I said, the gaming and it's definitely a male-dominated sport. It's not that we're not misogynistic, we don't like women. It's just that. It's just there are, I think, still at this time there are more men into this than women. There's a lot more women than there ever was, and it's growing and growing, but I think it's still male dominant.
Well,
not as dominant as it used to be.
I say on my show, misogyny is that even a real word? That doesn't even mean anything. I don't even know. You're just randomly stringing together syllables, Jared.
Are you looking to increase our mail? Is that what you're doing there, Mike? The views of the Varholinator do not necessarily represent those of Podcast at Ground Zero.
The high standards of the Podcast at Ground Zero.
Yeah. Yeah, this is coming from the guy who was creeping on 12-year-old Farousa Balk a few episodes back. Yeah, that's when she was in.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Well, they said something about that, and then what happened was what you couldn't see is that I went and I looked, on IMDb. Like it's like, why is Thrasher giving me such a hard time with this? And and actually saw how young Frusa Balk was when she made that movie. And I was like, ah! You know, holy shit! How do I back out of this? Too late. Too late. Creepy old dude. That's all there is to that.
So anyway, all right. So what else do we? I think we've covered really like a lot of the possibilities, a lot of realistic possibilities of what entertainment would be like in the apocalypse.
You did a good job on the show. We really covered actually a lot of ground.
A lot of ground, and of course, and I think you may still have depending again, maybe longer term after like you said, films or people might cobble together, some solar panels and save precious energy for like the Saturday night event where they use some of their precious power to maybe they found old movie discs, and you're going to have some of the old technology stuff around for at least a little bit. That's going to exist, but it's going to be a lot smaller in scale because that's a resource issue right there.
Preserving things like film because it falls apart very quickly. It only has a certain lifespan.
And I think people will do that sort of stuff in conjunction with, like, trade fairs. I mean, going back to Scott's example once again of the Middle Ages, you would have regional trade fairs once a year. And people would all come together at one spot to trade certain kinds of commodities coming from different areas. And you'd have all these different kinds of entertainments and other peripheral things all going on at the same time. So big entertainment spectacles, I think, are going to be done in conjunction with other things as well.
Yeah, I want there to be a war between two villages because at one of these trade fairs, somebody trades like their copy of Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings for some Star Wars, and it turns out like episode A New Hope they traded for Star Wars, and then like right during the trench, attack run, like there's a scratch on the disc. It's like those bastards.
That'd be hilarious. A post-apocalyptic gang that run around with bats that have fluorescent paint painted on them, and they call them lightsabers. And they run around. Getting mutants going.
We're gonna have
what is this? The Warriors? Are we gonna have
the baseball Furies?
The baseball Furies, like to the next
right.
level, and there was like
ACs, yeah.
There was the guys on like roller skates and overalls, and is that where we're gonna? Is that
Jared, I want to point out that one of the Warriors, I didn't realize this was Windows from The Thing. I'm not going with them. I ain't going with Windows. I ain't going. It turns out that actor was also in The Thing of all possible, weird
that is funny. I did not know that. Of course, James Remar, he's probably the one that's done best out of that movie.
Yes, he has. He's been in everything. Of course, he's been in some really, terrible sort of micro-budget Christy movies about how tough it is in America to be Christian lately.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But,
wow, I wouldn't know.
Yeah. But apparently, there's a paycheck, so you're an actor, you don't get picky. One last thing that's also entertainment, but it's also sort of a weird brand of entertainment. I mean, I mentioned religion, but I also we should mention politics. That when it comes to like coronations and royal weddings, that there is a enormous amount of public theater that goes along with that to placate the masses. If everyone gets to have a tankard of mead on the warlord's dime,
right? Good point.
At his daughter's wedding to some other local warlord, then that's maybe that is both entertainment and it's also good politics.
Yep.
And so I think that the idea of politics as entertainment, as a way to as opposed to just merely being an administrator or a bureaucrat or crushing your serfs, that's going to be a big thing as well.
Yep.
Well, also because we're talking about trade fairs and actually I think of the apocalypse because if we're speaking about the movie discs that people have because of the precious power they're using like Lord of the Rings and stuff. I think it may replace actual currency and you could use it to trade for value as copies of Mazes and Monsters because I'm sure there's a lot of those around because nobody wanted them. They'll find like a giant garbage dump full of like copies of Mazes and Monsters.
The story I want to tell now, which I can't do because I think they've actually found it, is the guys who go searching for a treasure trove of old world technology, and all they end up doing is digging up those landfilled copies of the E.T. video game.
No. They were purposely looking for that.
Yeah, but they did. They actually did dig those. Haven't they discovered a landfill yet?
They did. They dug those up. So I'm sure there's a landfill with Mazes and Monsters somewhere.
Or God forbid, the landfill full of Catcher in the Rye from some middle school or something. The Bible for a New Age. Who is this J.D. Salinger? Did anyone ever not know he was a hack?
Yeah, what I want is, yes, and then now the new, instead of saying heretic, they'll go phony.
Right. Exactly.
Phonies!
I actually have on the DVD rack downstairs. I actually have a copy of Mazes and Monster. I think I picked it.
Academy Award winner Tom Hanks in Mazes and Monsters.
Doesn't he battle the Gorn from Star Trek at the Twin Towers, or am I remembering this?
I don't really do. I bought it probably 10 years ago. It was in Walmart in the bin. I think I got it for $1. For $1, I was like, you know what? I'll pick this up for $1. I haven't watched it, but I have it, so I can say I have Mazes and Monsters.
I looked at the beginning of it a few years ago, and the two things I recognized was Tom Hanks being twitchy, and that kid who was in My Bodyguard and Meatballs with Bill Murray, who's Christopher Makepeace. Christopher Makepeace turns up. If I remember correctly, he's the kid at the college lunchroom who's wearing a World War I leather flying helmet and goggles while eating his mac and cheese or something. And I was like, yeah, that's the guy you want to start a conversation with.
I think that's Mike. I think one of your future episodes of D Infinity Live is going to have to be on Mazes and Monsters.
Yeah, I think so, because Will talks about that a lot.
All right, so I'm going to watch it. You need to propose that to Will, and then invite me on that show so we can talk about it.
Yeah, you're invited. I think we need to do that. Agreed.
All right. Are you not entertained? Have we?
Are you not entertained? Yes, we were entertained. I hope everybody was entertained. We had a really good show. A lot of good conversations. Mike said we covered a lot of the bases.
I think we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was good to have, like I said, it was good. I knew I wanted Mike on the show because, I know Mike was, was kind of a little bit of a, amateur historian, wrote a lot of books, especially Civil War era. So I knew he would kind of have that knowledge base to kind of cover that stuff. So that's why I had Mike in mind to join us for this week's show.
Technically, I'm a professional historian because they sell those damn books.
Okay, well, they do? Okay, then you're a professional. I stand corrected.
Have you made money off a book about history? You're officially a professional historian.
I can see a lot of money, Scott, all right?
It is not the amount. Was there money? Look, I didn't get a lot of money on my first trick, but I can still call myself a professional, okay?
Exactly.
You're still a professional.
So that's going to be it for this week, folks, for Entertainment in the Apocalypse. Like I said, we have a couple things, lined up for the future. Scott's still trying to get a hold of the creator for Twilight 2000. We want to do an interview with him.
Still haven't heard back from Frank Chadwick, but darn it,
Well, we eventually that's on our radar. We'd like to try to do that. Like I said, we're going to do a show about Lucifer's Hammer, for sure.
Hammer time.
Well, from the book Hammer Fever. So.
Hammer Fever. I like that.
Hammer Fever.
Everyone's got it. Catch some.
So we're going to do that. So Scott, you got to brush up on your Lucifer's Hammer. So we're going to do that. And then Mike had the good idea about politics in the apocalypse. So that's something that's going to go on the radar too. And we're going to invite you back for politics in the apocalypse, Mike, because you brought up the idea. So
I'd be honored. Thank you.
I just have to say this. Everyone's seen the guy who dressed up as Immortan Joe, except with the Trump hair and the suit. It really works. It's really kind of perfect.
No, I haven't seen that one. So
it's making the wasteland great again.
He's gonna make a wasteland, so that's why it'll be great. So. All right, folks. That's it for us this week. I said we got some shows coming up. We'll have our show. We got 2 in this month, like I always like to do. They weren't 2 weeks apart, but we got 2 in the month. So, and we'll get 2 in March. We'll probably have a show in about 2 weeks or so. So that's going to be it for this week, folks. Again, look for our future shows. As we know what they are, we will post them. And like I always say, please be socially responsible. If you like the show and you watch it on the YouTube channel, please subscribe to the channel. Like the stuff you like. Post comments, things like that. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Again, be socially responsible. Share with your friends. All that kind of good stuff. So, this is me, Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace. He is Adam Bomb Glancy. I'm all talked out tonight. And Michael, still to be determined what his apocalypse name for Hull is going to be. I'm still going to think about that. I'm going to try to come up with something good for that one.
I think O stands for ozone. Maybe Michael Ozone.
We can use that.
Ozone.
I'll work on that one. I'll think of something. We'll have something for next time. So we want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And we will see you in the Wastelands, folks. Thank you, and good night.